All right, welcome to Tavern Ramblings, Episode 8 from Lizards and Locations. This is John. I'm also here with...
Andrew, get ready for some rogue subclasses.
Yeah. So, as you guys have probably told for the last few episodes we've done, we're kind of diving into these releases that they're doing for the upcoming 2024 Handbook, as well as eventually the Monster book and the DM's book. But with that being said, today we're diving into three specific classes that, as of filming this, they just got done releasing this week. The first one we're going to be looking at would be Rogue, then we'll look at some Warlock, and then we're going to look at some Druid here. Druid is the most recent of those three that we're talking about here, and we're excited to kind of dive into these, get our first reactions and how these work, look at a little bit into these four subclasses, and just a quick reminder, we don't actually have the text in front of us because the book is not out yet, so we're really just kind of interpreting pretty much from what Jeremy Crawford has talked about with Todd, right?
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we're doing here.
We're not part of the pre-release stuff. We're not big enough for that yet. Maybe next time they do a release, we'll be on that. We'll be included in that short list. But for now, I gotta say these are three classes that are very near and dear to our group's heart.
Yeah. I mean, all three of these have appeared in our campaigns. Mm-hmm. One of them so far has been off stream, but I'm sure it will make an appearance very, very soon, or at least soon.
I mean, I was a warlock on stream. I'm pretty sure I was a celestial warlock for Jimbo Coctosin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We've had warlock, we've had rogue, we just haven't had druid on stream.
Oh, that's right. We haven't had a druid on stream.
Yeah, because Hakuna hasn't been there yet. But
yeah. Well,
coming soon to a podcast.
Yeah.
Video.
Don't like. I mean. I don't know how soon we're going to do it, but it is definitely coming. It's in the works. It's in the pipeline.
Eventually.
Yeah. Coming soon, TM.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and start diving into the rogue here.
Mary is very happy that the rogue exists because I don't think she's gone one time where she wasn't a rogue, and she was a fighter in that one.
Yeah, I think there's always some kind of multi-class into that rogue, right, that she does.
She loves to dip into rogue.
Yeah, and I know Kat likes rogue a lot too, so she'll like dive into it a little bit. Between that and bard, those are her favorites.
I feel like Kat likes bard more than rogue. For her skill monkey class.
Yeah, as I get the behind the scenes with Kat, so I see her play like Dragon Age in every other game ever, and she's always a rogue in those games.
Honestly, I love playing a rogue in like RPGs like that, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. It's so tempting to just have spells. I just like spells. Yeah. Spells are so good. But yeah, I
never did like in the Dragon Age game. I never did the spell stuff, but Dragon Age 2 was the first time I did spells, and like I remember loving Dragon Age 2 the spell casting. Yeah, mainly because they made it very combative heavy,
Yeah. And like it's the idea of a thief is so fun, and like I was a rogue as that was my main in World of Warcraft when I started playing when I was like 12 or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, I love a rogue, very near and dear. Not as dear as the next one, but let's go over what the rogue does. Anything that's changed over the course of the playtest. I don't think that a lot of things have changed. I think it's mostly the same.
Yeah, it's very different than the 2014 rogue, but it's not so different than the playtest rogue, right?
Yeah, these are very, very similar to the playtest that we saw in the later parts of the UA.
Yeah, I think the biggest changes really come in the subclass stuff that we'll talk about in a second here, but let's just go through the base rogue. The first thing that you get that's, new, but not new to playtesting is weapon mastery, right? Mm-hmm. Which is going to greatly change the tactics of playing a rogue, I believe.
Lots of Nick and lots of Vex, I think, is going to be the main thoroughfare for that.
And I think you set that up perfectly by mentioning Vex, because Vex is one of those things, if not mistaken, is that if you hit, you get to apply advantage to your next hit. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so now you would say you don't have sneak attack on your first hit, but your offhand dagger or whatever you're using, now you can get that sneak attack on the second hit.
By the way, if it's the first round of combat and you don't have advantage as a rogue, I'm judging you just a little bit.
Yeah, what are you doing with your life?
Like, come on, man. Sometimes if it's like the third or fourth time, like a lot of shit has happened, like it may be difficult to like position yourself to get advantage, but like if it's the first round of combat, you don't have advantage, what are you doing?
So with those weapon masteries, I think they get 2, like most classes do, right, to start off with. And they can choose those weapons each long rest. Once again, we've talked about weapon mastery, about how people might be we're homebrewing it a little bit differently from them. But with that being said, they choose their 2 weapons, and that's about it. You get that Thieves' Cant, nothing new there, right? Now, what they have said is that all classes will be doing their subclasses at 3rd level, because there were some that were getting at 2nd level. So the only thing that is like for all classes that is like gonna happen is 3rd level will be your subclass. But they mentioned that they're bringing in steady aim at 3rd level, which is from Tasha's, I believe. So that would be kind of cool to see, because steady aim is going to allow you to have a better, let's just say, a chance at getting that sneak attack now.
Yeah, steady aim was a Tasha's Cauldron of Everything optional class feature, and now it is just a standard feature that comes with the rogue, which is fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
And like most gaming, when there's a mechanic like steady aim, you have to stay still to be able to do that. There is one exception they mentioned in the video. The assassin is going to be able to get steady aim while moving.
Well, specifically, they're able to use steady aim and then move, because so specifically you have to shoot, and you have to shoot or use your thing, and then you can move. You actually cannot move and then shoot. You have to attack at the beginning before you move, according to what I was told.
Yeah, which is different than like just the base version of steady aim, right? Where you essentially sacrifice your move for that.
Yeah, it's basically if you haven't moved yet, you get advantage, and then your speed is set to 0. The assassin makes it so that your speed is not set to 0 after you attack, so you can still move.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Now, the coolest thing that has happened in Rogueland during the playtesting is the cunning strikes, right? I mean, that and the devious strikes.
It was my favorite thing for sure.
Yeah, and so they kept that from the playtest. No wonder, because it scored so high. The Cunning Strike essentially allows you to trade some of your sneak attack damage dice for effects like poison. I think you can trip someone. Yep. There's probably some other ones as well. From what I remember, there was quite a big list of them.
There's not as big a list now in the actual release. They kind of trimmed it down at the beginning, and then they add more later. But
with devious strikes?
Yeah, and then the 3 you have in the beginning are poison, trip, and withdraw.
Nice. And the cool thing about poison is it gives that person disadvantage, right? So I mean, as long as the poison stay the same.
Poisoned is really good. You guys should be using your poisons. Make your DM give you poisons.
And then that trip is going to be nice, because you can give yourself advantage if you're right next to them, right? You can hit them.
Give everybody advantage.
Yeah, essentially. And then the ability to withdraw, which I'm guessing they're referring to disengage, is what I'm guessing they're trying to say there.
Yeah, it's like disengage. You get half your movement without provoking attack or opportunity.
Nice. Yeah, so Cunning Strike, really cool. What I like about it is it's super tactical, right? You know, it's this idea that I can do my sneak damage dice. I'm allowed to. If I have 3d6, I can do that, absolutely. However, maybe I want to do 2d6 damage and apply one of these things if it's worth 1d6, right? It gives that tactical feel to the game that I like, that there's more customization in what the character can do with their attacks.
Yeah, the poison is really good. Like, giving disadvantage on another character for a minute, that's pretty freaking good. And like the Constitution saving throw, I'm not sure what the roll for that is. I'm not sure if it's I would assume it's going to be intelligence based, because it's the rogue, and rogues are usually more intelligence leaning than charisma or wisdom. So, you know, I'm not sure how many people are actually playing a rogue with high intelligence, but that's a reason to do that. It gives the rogue another little thing you can do in case you want them to be, you know, a grizzled old veteran or something, or something other than just I sneak up on you and I do a bucket of damage.
Yeah, and they kept the reliable talent. They just moved it earlier.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, reliable talent is that thing that like you can't roll under a 10, I think is what it is, right?
Yep.
Like so like the lowest you can roll on a skill check is a 10. And so they moved that from level 11 to level 7, so you're going to get that earlier, so you're going to get to feel your rogue being just reliable earlier and better at what they do. And then at a level 11, what used to be there is now the improved Cunning Strike, which is cool because now I can take Cunning Strike and add a second effect to it.
You can trip them and poison them.
Yeah, which is just so cool. Like, that's such a good thing to do.
It's gonna get even better.
Oh, yeah. And, like, you're hinting there, level 14. What happens at level 14 there, Andrew?
You get devious strikes, which are basically, instead of the 1d6 options you get for, like, in case, if no one's listened to or heard of the AUA, basically the cutting strikes is you take a little bit of damage off, you can do these things. This one, a little bit more, 2d6 for each of them. You have daze, which is if they fail a Constitution saving throw, they only get to move or take an action. It's basically slow, or like the daze thing. I'm sure you've seen it in Baldur's Gate 3. You have a hammer, you get the daze as like a thing. It's pretty good. Knockout is 6d6, so like this is a crazy one. Bonk an enemy in the head and render them unconscious, so you just end it right there.
Which is so cool if you think about the RP of something like, that whole like wanted, dead or alive kind of thing, but like, what if you really don't want to kill this person? You're trying to extract information from them.
Absolutely.
Well, now you have that ability to knock them out.
Yeah,
right?
You want to.
You always had that, but now it's mechanically built in there.
Yeah, you want to capture them, tie them up, and then one of your party members will kill them after you go and take a leak or something. I don't know.
That sounds like a true story.
It might be. It might be. And then the last one is 3d6, which is obscure. Cutting strike option, your target will need to make a dexterity saving throw or be blinded. So you can blind. Yeah. It's honestly, it's a little bit interesting because I'm not sure if I would take that over just poisoning them.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I would choose blinded is because there are certain things that you can't do unless you can see the opponent.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's say it's a spellcaster. I'd probably want to blind them over poisoning them just because a lot of spells say you must be able to see the target.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. They got rid of blind sense. I think that's something.
Blind sense is gone. No longer blind sense, which is fine with me.
Yeah, but they they improved Slippery Mind. If you guys remember Slippery Mind, that was the thing that gave you wisdom in saving throws at level 15. Now they're like, hey, you know what? We should also give them proficiency in charisma saving throws, as well as wisdom, which affects things like, I don't know, banish, right?
Banish is the big
charisma
one.
Save.
Banish is the big one, yeah.
So it's harder to banish those rogues. So that's pretty nice. Yeah. And then the epic boon at 19, like all classes are getting now. Mm-hmm. And then they have their paramount feature, which is Stroke of Luck. I haven't looked at Stroke of Luck too much. Have they changed that one quite a bit, or?
Two upgrades. You can now use Stroke of Luck on saving throws, and when you fail a d20 test, it turns your roll into a 20, which means a missed attack roll becomes a critical hit. It's pretty good. I think that you couldn't use it on saving throws, and you couldn't make them a critical hit before.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like I think Stroke of Luck was only for ability checks. Now you can use them on saving throws, and I don't believe you could make them a critical hit last time.
Okay, so that's their main thing then there.
Yeah.
All right, should we dive into some of these subclasses?
Sure. Let's get into it.
All right. So let's talk about this Arcane Trickster here. Arcane Trickster was interesting because it was already a pretty good subclass in my opinion. At least the flavor of it, right?
I mean, it's a rogue that can cast spells. What's not to like?
Yeah, it's like, and they mentioned that with subclasses. Subclasses were designed to be, hey, I want to still be getting better at rogue, but I might want to dip my hands into another class without multi-classing, right? Mm-hmm. And so with Arcane Trickster, you get to dip into some of the spell casting stuff. And so what was really cool, my favorite change that they did for the Arcane Trickster was that they got rid of the spell list limitations.
Yes, now you can cast anything from the wizard spell list, not just illusion and enchanting spells.
Which is really cool because now we're going to have Arcane Tricksters that are going to differ from each other. Because there was a little, to be honest, there was this idea that almost all Arcane Tricksters built into the Trickster were illusion based.
Well, yeah.
Right? And that was that's what they had to draw from.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool, but what if I want to be more of a magical rogue that does some damage, right? Some fire damage or something like that. Yeah. And now I can, right? I can get some of those evocation stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to think about it from I'm thinking about it from like a meta perspective. Like, is there a reason for me as a rogue who can run up and do, an extra 8d6 damage? Like I just have a one-man fireball extra damage. Is it worth it for me to cast a spell at like first or second level? Because you get spells, but like they're limited. You don't get very high level spells, and
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where like I understand why they had it as illusion and enchanting, because those are the ones you're probably going to use anyway. If I'm honest, like those are the ones that are going to give you the biggest opportunity to use your best abilities. But also, if somebody wants to do that, if somebody wants to throw a fireball as a rogue, then fucking sure, great. I'm glad they're able to do that. I'm always a fan of customizing your character, which is why the warlock is my favorite class.
Yeah, and I think that, the key word here is flexibility, right? They're getting more flexibility to get some more differentiation and customization. What my I guess my second favorite thing that the Arcane Trickster did, because they kept some of the stuff the same, with their ability
it's mostly
to use Mage
unchanged.
Hand. Yeah, like their Mage Hand is that's like the big cantrip, right? For the Arcane Tricksters is the Mage Hand, because they can do more things.
Yep.
What was cool was they added a special Cunning Strike for the Arcane Trickster, which essentially means if I use like that trip ability, like when I trip someone with my Cunning Strike, I can then use my Mage Hand to trip someone else.
Yeah.
Within 5 feet of my Mage Hand. So it's really cool because like, hey, they're watching me trip this person, but realistically I'm being tricky and I'm using my Mage Hand, I'm tripping someone else at the same time. It's very, magician-like.
It's very Benny Hill too, very just kind of silly. Like it's super advantageous, but like I just picture that in my mind where like this rogue is just tripping this person and then another person falls over and everyone's just kind of falling all over themselves as this rogue is trying to like get away or steal something, or just like as you're walking through it, like things are just falling over around you.
Yeah, I'm thinking like that idea of like, the break-in into something and you're like distracting the guards, you know?
I'm not sure if they had anything else. I think that was mostly it, but the trip is really good. Trip is good especially if you have a lot of party members that like to be in melee.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
for sure.
It's definitely a good thing to do, or like if you're for whatever reason balancing on something and you want to like push somebody off something, tripping is a great option. I probably should have done that in our Strixhaven campaign before, because they were like riding on a frog and I was like, I pushed them over, which like we did it as a grapple, but like it would have just been a trip, right?
Yeah, it would have been just a trip.
Yeah, I mean it worked out the same because it was like an acrobatics check versus whatever, like a contesting whatever. But yeah, it's basically just a trip, which is good. You should use trips. You should use You should use grapples. You should do trips. They're really good.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good mechanic to have. Another subclass we could talk about with the rogue would be the assassin.
Nice. I do like the assassin.
Yeah, from the assassin, they said that the thing that they didn't like was that essentially all the action economy, or at least all the mechanics, were built on the simple idea that your person had to be surprised.
Yep.
And so by them changing the surprise rules, which they knew that they were going to do, they realized that the assassin had to change as well, right? Their base subclass now had to become something different. And so what they did was they made it easier to trigger assassinate. Now you just simply have to go before the other person, right? Which makes it way easier to trigger your assassinate ability, especially since I believe they get advantage on their initiative.
They do. I believe it's pretty early on as well.
So if you think about having a dex-based class with advantage already on top of that, like the chances of you going earlier are probably just that. You're going to go earlier.
Yeah, and unfortunately it does still fall into that plot hole of like, if the dice are especially mean to you, you're kind of screwed. Like there's not much you can do about it. And then you lose a lot of your stuff. My question would be, if somebody, let's say the assassin rolls terribly, like they roll a 2 and a 3, and for some reason they go last, and then for another hypothetical, like the wizard or druid or somebody goes and they roll super well, and they're like, oh well, instead of lowering my initiative, which we've talked about on our house rules, that's also a fine thing to do. If they cast hold person, or they do something else that prevents that character from acting, or that creature from acting, does that count as an action, them like rolling a save or like doing something else? In the terms of like, can an assassin still hit them if they haven't done anything, or if they're a hold person? It doesn't much matter a lot, because if somebody is being held, you just go run up to them and stab them and do a bunch of damage anyway. But it's a question that I had when I was listening to it. I was like, I wonder what the ruling is for like a creature that hasn't acted, but their turn has happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess it will come down to the exact wording of the assassinate feature.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and how they word it, because a hold person, you don't take an action, you don't take a bonus action, you don't take a reaction, you don't even take a move. So like there is no action happening even though it's your turn. So that would be an interesting ruling on how to do that.
I heard in the I heard them talk about it. Apparently the special cunning action that the assassins are gonna have is the poisoning one.
Making it easier for them.
Yeah, I guess it's gonna be like a lower DC or like a higher DC to resist or something like that. I'm not sure what the exact empowerment they have is. I don't recall it.
They just said it was going to do with poisons, was pretty much what they told us.
And then the other thing that I remember is the steady aim thing where they can still run. So you can do more of a hit and run assassin. Yeah,
they can hit and they can move afterwards. And then they have the like they already had the impersonation thing. Like it's assassins can that's right. They get a disguise kit. Like
they give you the disguise kit and they give you the thieves tools. They talked about how it was funny. Like, you can use a disguise kit, but we're not going to give you one.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too. I was like, you're kind of right.
Yeah, it's fun. It's pretty funny. But yeah, Assassins, it's pretty good. You go first, you do damage. It's cut and dry. It's simple. It's easy to implement. It's a pretty good subclass. Yeah,
and once again, Assassin is going to play off those other basic changes that have been done in the rogue class, right? So looking at weapon masteries, that's going to affect things. Having that cunning strike and the devious strikes, like all of those will also make the assassin feel stronger than what it was in 2014. Next one we got is the soul knife. I'm not as familiar with the soul knife, mainly because I've literally never made any psionic characters,
Yep.
But this one comes from Tasha's. And the coolest thing I saw was that they're like, hey, we don't want you to miss out on the weapon masteries. So they're going to give Vex automatically to the blade.
I'm gonna be real with you. I think the best thing they gave the soul knife was that now your blade can be used to as an opportunity attack, and that makes it even better when you have the Vex property, because now if you miss for whatever reason on your first attack, you get an opportunity attack. You use Vex. Now you have an advantage.
Yeah, which sets up your next sneak attack.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that is really nice. They also said they increased the range of the psychic blades or whatever.
Yeah. Well, no. I don't.
Or is it just more defined?
No, they just it's a range of 60 now. It used to be you could throw it beyond the range, but now you just can't. So if anything, it's worse.
It's actually more limited.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Gotcha.
I don't there's only. I think that there being a limit to how far your brain can throw a fake knife is fine.
Yeah, and I think they put the limit at 120.
Fake. It's 60. Before it was 60/120, and now it's just 60/nothing.
Okay.
So yeah,
I read that as the opposite. Is that they have a range of 60/120 instead of the other one.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh shit, never mind. I misread that. I didn't hear about that when they talked about it. But yeah, now you can attack with them farther without with disadvantage instead of not being able to at all. Actually, that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, well that was just me being wrong.
But yeah, so I've never played Soul Knife, but they said that it should feel very
it's pretty good.
True to what the Tasha's version of it was.
Well, yeah,
and honestly,
they didn't change much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you think about it, that's been true for everything they've done from Tasha's. Tasha's was I guess just so good. I mean, I don't guess. I know Tasha's was really good.
Yeah.
That they didn't have to change much. They just had to make sure it was still improved while also fitting in with the new rules and mechanics that they were making for the base class.
They know that Tasha's is their most popular book, and there's a reason they're borrowing most things from there. So yeah, anything that appeared in Tasha's is still going to be good. Some of the things that are in Tasha's are going to be a little bit outdated, maybe. They might feel a little bit less powerful than the new versions in the 2024 Player's Handbook, but they're definitely not going to be bad. There aren't any bad subclasses in Tasha's.
I mean, as far as supplements go, too, Tasha has really set up the power level balancing that they wanted to do going on. I'm thinking about even Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, right? That Drake Warden feels like a power balance from Tasha's rather than the 2014 Player's Handbook's Beastmaster.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, true.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Let's move on to the thief, because I like a lot of the things that the thief got this time. I think it's really fun.
Dude, it's hard to not choose thief, if I'm being honest. Like,
it really is. They get so many cool things, and like, if you want to do magic, Arcane Trickster is there and it's pretty good, but like, thief can do a lot of the things that Arcane Trickster can do, just with a little bit more setup, and he does it almost better. Honestly.
Yeah, I would argue the thief does magic better, but doesn't spellcast unless it's an item or a scroll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. They have to, like I said, they have to set up. They have to have the thing. They don't just innately get it. But if they have the thing, then they're really, really good with it.
I mean, let's talk about that big, elephant in the room. The activate magic item as a bonus action.
Crazy good.
Holy shit.
Crazy good. So
like,
good.
I can do a sneak attack and then use a wand.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's so good.
And then, like, you get to interpret the word, what is a magic item, right? You know what I mean? Like,
well, magic items are, like, defined in the player's handbook most of the time. So, like, I mean, if you homebrew it, then yeah, you get to decide what that means. But in the player's handbook, it says, like, there are a lot of magic items, and there are a lot of really good stuff.
The thing I'm thinking about is sometimes things will say wondrous item, but they'll be magical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, part that's DM and part is just common sense. You know?
If I see the word wondrous item, I'm assuming it's magical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless it specifically says this is not a magical item, I am assuming it's magical.
Yeah, like on our Patreon, we just released like 3 new magic items, right, for like people to look at. And so one of them was that bottle plant that Saphira has.
Mm-hmm. And
so I called that a wondrous item because it is magical in nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not armor, it's not a scroll. You know what I mean? So I just called it wondrous item.
It's everything else. It's just all the things that don't have a previously listed classification.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll see things like boots being called wondrous items instead of armor because they don't want to take away from mage armor or, you know what I mean? Like things like that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not even all the stuff that they got. If that were the only thing that the thief got as a change, it would be massive and super good. It's not
so good.
It's not even the only thing. They also get stealth attack where they can remain hidden after attacking. Crazy good. They get a freaking.
I just want to say
it's crazy.
That's
so good.
That stealth attack almost feels like it should have been in the assassins. Like, just in my canon head of what an assassin would do.
No, because assassins want to do more damage. They don't necessarily want to remain hidden. Like, yeah, it helps for sure, but like, I understand they couldn't give it to both, and if you're going to give it to one of them, the thief makes more sense.
You think the thief? Okay, interesting. I'm on the fence. I still think assassin makes sense, but I get that you want to do more damage, right? Like, do as much damage at first as possible.
Yeah, you want to make, like, the assassin wants to end it immediately. The thief might want to draw it out because they want to do something else. They want to draw them in somewhere. The assassin's like, nope, I want this person to die as soon as possible, and then I can leave.
Yeah. How about that attunement slot?
Additional attunement slot. Activates magical items without expending charges using spell scrolls no matter fucking what. I think that, I mean, to be fair, I think if you're someone who can cast spells, you should just be able to use a spell scroll. And even if you aren't, like, I think the intelligence check.
Make an intelligence.
Yeah, just make an intelligence check to try and do it. And, like, it makes sense that if you can't fucking read, you can't use a spell scroll. Like, yeah, okay, fine. But, like,
that will always be a homebrew for me, I think.
But yeah,
to be honest.
But to have it baked into your class for, Adventure League or, DMs that aren't quite as comfortable with the rules, so they aren't as comfortable bending them either. That's that's fine.
Yep, absolutely.
No expending charges though. That's so good. Additional attunement slots, so good.
So, like, that's crazy. Like, because there are wands and items that once you use a charge, it breaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, you can make your wand last longer by doing this.
Yeah, that's what we're all here for.
Oh god, Thief is so good. It is everything I want in a treasure hunter. You know what I mean? Like, it to me is that it's that person who is the stereotypical rogue, but also is like a magic hoarder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's definitely, in my opinion, the best class in these this group of 4.
As a mechanic one, it's my favorite. As a person who's just interested in trying something, I'm really curious about the Soul Knife thing. They're getting me interested in the psionic feel right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of here for it. Like I want to see where that goes lore wise and what I can do with my worlds lore wise with the psionic stuff. You know,
that's fun. I had my psionic kick when I went into 3.5.
Okay, was that really big in 3.5? Was that like a big thing of it, or was it just new to 3.5?
It was new to 3.5 because it wasn't in 3, but Psionics has been around since the first edition, I'm pretty sure. So, but yeah, no, I tried it out because like, oh, Psionics, oh, move shit with my mind, do crazy shit. I picked a fighter because fighters were really fun back in 3.0, and or 3.5, and I had a good time.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool to see what they did with the rogue. I'm excited for it. You know, they knew they already had a winner. They just literally had to make it stronger. You know what I mean? Like that's all they had to do.
I mean, unfortunately, the rogue has always been and continues to be, in my opinion, one of the weaker classes in terms of just straight up damage they can do.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, sneak attack is really good, but extra attack is just kind of better in a lot of situations. But
it depends. You know what I mean? Because like, you know, it's all about how you build your character. Because like sneak attack, when you get to those high levels of sneak attack, holy shit, that's a lot of damage.
It does, but
if you also think about it, like a fighter getting extra attack, like getting 3 attacks before their bonus action.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things where from a min-maximum optimization situation, the rogue is just not as good. It doesn't measure up. That's just how the math works. Playing a rogue though, great, love it, absolutely do it. It's great. It's a great class. It's so much fun. Don't worry if someone like me tells you that it's not optimal. Who gives a shit?
Live your dreams.
Yeah, live your dreams. Absolutely, have fun.
All right, should we go to your favorite?
If it's enter this at your own risk, because I will bring up the entire hour talking about warlocks if you let me.
Let's do it. Let's talk about warlocks.
All right.
I'm excited. You know, just real quick to get those 4 subclasses, just to name them for you guys. Mm-hmm. We have the Great Old One, we have the Archfey, we have the Fiend, and the Celestial. So just keep that in your mind as we get ready to talk about these. What's different about the Warlock, or what's improved for the Warlock? I'll let you kind of take the helm on this one.
Yeah, the Warlock, my baby. Well, one of the things is you get your subclass at level 3, which is kind of strange, but it's fine. It works out. You can always just have it as a flavor that your character is whatever your patron is, because not getting a patron until level 3 is just not really logical. But it's just that's when you get the things that your patron gives you. Everything else is just basic powers, and then you've proven yourself enough to where your patron's like, okay, now you can actually have part of my power and not just like generic fantasy spell casting and spell flinging. Yeah. So the biggest thing, honestly, is Algetification. You get it at level 1. It's pretty good.
That's really nice to get. So was that like a level 2, level 3 thing back in the day or something? Or
that was level 2. It was level 2.
Okay, I've never played Warlock actually to this day.
Yeah, it was level 2, but like, you know, it doesn't much matter, but you get it earlier, you get more of them now. The biggest thing about having an Eldritch Invocation level 1 is that now the pact of the chain, the pact of the blade,
or something
and the pact of the tome, now you can take them at level 1, which is really good.
Oh, that's really nice, because that's a huge part of your character building. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That used to be one of the things that you picked at level 3 along with your patron, is what your pact was. But now you can do at level 1 you get the pact of the blade for if you want to be a bit more of a stabby warlock, or pact of the tome if you want to be back there casting spells, and then pact of the chain if you want to just chill out in the back and, I don't know, pet a cat or something.
Yeah, you're new familiar, because don't you get like new familiar?
Bro, the new familiar is so good. It doesn't fit with Saphira at all, but damn, it's so cool. Yeah,
because they added like the venomous snake, right? That's a new one they added. Mm-hmm. There's like a skeleton thing you can do. Isn't there like a slad? Like
there's a slad tadpole if you want to do like the Great Old Ones flavoring.
I mean, there's like a brand new one, right? There's like a. Is it the Sphinx?
Yeah, it's like the wondrous Sphinx or something like that. It's basically a cat with wings that has like constellations and like star effects in it. I'm like, it's
Aesthetically, it's beautiful.
It's 100% my aesthetic. I love it. It looks so cool. I haven't seen the stat block. I know they have it available, but I don't care about the stat block. It doesn't matter. Like, that's not the point.
Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of true for most familiars, right? Like, unless you're trying to do a utility thing with it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree. And like, so warlocks and like just familiars alone, you can like cast through your familiar too, right? Mm-hmm. So now you get this cool ass aesthetic fucking sphinx that you can cast stuff through.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think
the art is going to be beautiful.
The art,
like,
the
you
art
know,
is
think
very
about
good.
what you could do.
The art is very good. I believe that most of the casting through a familiar has to be a touch spell, if I'm not mistaken. But
okay,
that's still pretty good. Like, still gives you a range on your touch attack spells.
Yeah, and then the Eldritch Invocation thing, where you can like, can't you attach it to new cantrips? Because it used to be Eldritch Blast, if I remember right.
Yes, one of the biggest changes for the Eldritch Blast centric invocations are now you can choose any Warlock cantrip and attribute it to that instead. So the example they gave was, oh, you want Repelling Blast, knocks you back. Also, but you put that on Chill Touch, that also slows them. So it's doubly effective in that particular situation. Agonizing Blast with Toll the Dead is pretty good. That's like probably the maximum potential damage you can do.
Agonizing is when you can use your Charisma modifier, right?
Correct.
For damage?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, you can.
That's cool.
You can add your Charisma modifier to your damage on your cantrips, and it says that you have to choose a cantrip when you take the invocation. So like, if you know, it doesn't make too much of a difference. I'm not sure how many DMs would like actually be super strict about that kind of thing, and most people don't take more than one damaging cantrip anyway because you only get so many of those things.
Yeah, and honestly, if you get multiple invocations, you just go, okay, hey, this is my pushing back one, this is my damage one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you can have like a utility one, like you said with the Ray of Frost, which, if you think about it, is a really great combo.
Yeah, and like, and you can consider this like. Actually looking at how you build a warlock, your first 3 levels are going to look the same by the time you get to level 3. You're probably going to have Agonizing Blast, you're probably going to have Repelling Blast, you're probably going to have your Pact. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it kind of works. So it's good and bad in that kind of situation where, like, yes, it gives you a bit more a little bit earlier, but because now your Pact takes up a invocation, we do end up with more invocations eventually, but not that much money anymore. Like, you get 2 more, and one of them is going to be probably taken up by your Pact. So, in essence, you get, like, 1 more invocation, which isn't bad. I'll take it.
Yeah, and they, another thing that we're looking at, too, is, like, and you might have kind of mentioned it, too, but, like, before when you did Tome, Chain, and Blade, you were kind of stuck with those, right? Like, that was your choice, but now you can add... Like, I took Blade and now I can add Tome to it later on.
Yes,
right?
you can take both of them.
Invocation now.
Absolutely, you can take 1, you can take 0, you can take all 3.
That's so cool. Like, that to me is like one of the better changes already. So like, that's like 3 different changes that all by themselves would be enough, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's changed in the Warlock, and I'm not upset about it. It's pretty good. But I mean,
did they do anything different with the action economy? Like, did they? Well, they didn't mention Hex at all, so I'm guessing Hex probably either hasn't changed or it's going to be more in a spell talk. We'll find more out about Hex.
Yeah, they haven't said anything about it, which makes me think that they didn't change it much. Honestly, I don't really have much confidence in them fixing Hex because for whatever reason they just don't want it to be good. They want because they consider it to be like a staple that every Warlock has. Like, it's one of those things where, like, oh yeah, of course you're going to get Hex. Why wouldn't you? The way they do that now is like, okay, well, we can't make it too good now, because if it's too good, then, you know, Warlock's power balance gets knocked out of whack, which is fine and fair, but the fact that it doesn't have any, like, actual...
Upcasting.
Well, it's like, what's the point of upcasting it? Like, it lasts longer. Like, okay, that's cool, but it's just...
But not necessary, really.
But, like, when you get to like, a level 4 spells, you can't... Unless you have like some way of finagling with scrolls and stuff, which that's what I would do if you know, and not to spoil anything, but when we do our new thing when Saphira comes back, she's gonna have the invocation where she doesn't have to sleep. She's gonna use that time to make scrolls, because It's just you have to have scrolls as a warlock just to make your spell economy not painful.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, and you're casting Hex, you're casting a 4th level Hex, literally for what?
Yeah. And I think they mentioned, and I could be completely wrong, did they mention that there was some kind of ability where you can get a spell slot back before you do a rest?
Yes, there is a level 2 thing called Magical Cunning where you can take a minute to get your spell slots back.
Okay, you can do it like what, once a day probably?
I believe
I would assume that sounds like a once a day thing.
Yeah, it does. I believe it is it's a long rest to recover it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that's a nice little added bonus.
Yeah.
To help out with the spell management. Mm-hmm. So, and I feel bad for rambling about this, but like I guess I don't because it's Tavern Ramblings.
Yeah.
Hex to me, why not just make Hex a thing that doesn't require a spell slot, but it's like Channel Divinity where it's like you have so many of these you can use a day.
Man, that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? Kind of like how I did with Hunter's Mark with Dez. Yeah.
Yeah, and they implied that's what they were going to do. We'll find out Friday.
Yeah.
This Friday for us, which is going to be the 28th.
Yep.
In case you listen to us, they were doing the Ranger stuff, so maybe I hope something happened there with Hunter's Mark.
We'll see.
But that's because I'm so biased towards Rangers.
Yeah,
so.
We'll see. And honestly, if we want to ramble a little bit on, we can get to the Druid next time. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. But like, it's just like for me, I'm just kind of like pissed about this idea of like think about it. Like, to me, they've done such a good job with making the staple stuff better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just being transparent, I think they've done a great job with that. If you think that Hex is a staple, fucking fix it. You know what I mean? Like, Don't think it's good enough because it's not. Right? Like, no warlock wants to spend a level 4 spell slot on Hex.
Yeah. And the biggest argument is like, oh, well, it's fine because your Eldritch Blast gets leveled up as you level up, so like you get more damage out of it anyway. But, like, that's not because of Hex. That's just because you get more Eldritch Blasts. It just doesn't fit. Like, would you rather cast a level here's the question. Would you rather cast Hex or would you rather cast Hypnotic Pattern?
Hypnotic Pattern.
Like,
by far.
it's not not even a question. Because and they talk about this too, which makes me kind of upset because it's so intentional the way they do this. Is like, we have to make sure we don't give warlocks spells that ramp up really well. It's like, well, that's kind of a dick move, isn't it?
Yeah, it is weird because, like, I mean, think about, like, all right, there's so many ways, like, I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, you can spitbrain too.
But, like, I'm gonna spitbrain too. But, like, think about, like, ways we can do Hex. We did you can do, like, a Channel Divinity thing. Mm-hmm. You could also, like, the upcast version, like, if I remember right, doesn't Hex do a thing where, like, you get disadvantage on saves, or is it ability checks? One of the two.
Ability checks is what Hex does. In order to get get saving throws, you either need to. That's for Bestow Curse, which is to be fair, is another warlock spell. They do have Bestow Curse, or you can be a Warlock of the Great Old One, which improves your Hex so that now it does ability scores and saving throws.
Okay, I like what they did there with the old one.
Yes,
that makes sense to me.
Yes, and we'll get to that, but
let's digest this real quick. What if they took Bestow Curse and kind of paired it with Hex, like made that into one better spell?
They would have to figure out a way to do that. I feel like instead of doing the way they do it now with Hex, where it like gets longer, what they could do is add
more disadvantages, maybe.
Sure. But like level 1, it does just baseline Hex. Level 2, it does something like, oh, you can do it against 2. You can select one more creature. Level 3, it gives you the Bestow Curse as well, where gives disadvantage on saving throws, and just make the spell like kind of step up as they get.
Yeah.
And like that's like the most complicated way to do it, and they don't like doing that, obviously, because the only thing they've ever done for upcasting usually is either adding length, adding the amount of people you can do, or adding damage. So like this would be like all, and this is like adding different effects at different levels. But like when you have but like Hex is the warlock thing. So like but like so like you have to think about it like, okay, other classes can take Hex, like it's possible, but building it so that it levels up with the warlock just makes so much sense to me, because it's so integral to their design philosophy of the warlock and Hex attached to that.
Yeah, and I would just argue that they have taken spells away from other casters before. So why not take Hex away, make it warlock specific, and then from there, you know what I mean, improve it and such.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense to me that Vow of Enmity got such a nice look over, and Hex, to our knowledge, has not yet.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I'm sure they think it's really powerful because they think that an extra 1d6 damage on all your attacks is like super fucking broken, but like
not compared to a level 5 spell.
That's like an extra 3 damage per round. If like maybe not, probably not even, because you have to take into account that you have to hit. So like maybe it's an extra 2 damage per hit. Like, like it's not crazy. Like it's not a freaking another level in Eldritch and freaking Divine Smite or some ridiculous amount of damage that paladins can do. But you know, it's, I don't know, it helps that you can do it over and over and over again. I understand, but like Hex needs to be better. At least with Hunter's Mark, if you're a ranger, you have access to level 1 spell slots. You don't have to cast Hunter's Mark at level fucking 5 if you don't want to. You know, warlocks don't have that option. Yeah,
and then also, just to be clear, Hunter's Mark, you know, it does get slightly better because eventually, like if you're Beastmaster, your beast can work with your Hunter's Mark and do extra damage from your companion.
Yeah, there are other ways to improve Hunter's Mark besides that. Just like there are ways to improve Hex through class features, but I think that as a baseline, Hex needs to be really looked at and really like thought about, because what I said was probably a bit too powerful. I was just you know, sprit braining, as we say.
That's what I'm saying. The easiest and to me the most appropriate answer is to do it. You can do it 4 times per day, or maybe you do it 2 times and it becomes 3 and it becomes 4 as you get higher level. You know what I mean?
Either one of those things. Like you would just give it to us as a basically like you get it for free as a extra class feature. Like maybe you have other things you can use that, because like we'll get into it, but there are things that these classes can do. Like, oh yeah, trade that in and be able to cast Hex at a first level. Like just anything to save spell slots. Those things are precious. We don't have a lot of those.
Yeah. They add a mechanic now to talking to your patron too. Like
we'll get there. Like speaking of which, let's get on with the leveling process, because we kind of got diverged there for a little bit. So
we got Hex by Hex.
So going back to level 1, because we haven't gotten out of level 1 yet. Now we have medium armor. Okay. Which is great. Awesome. Cool. It gives us a little bit more of a build versatility. We don't have to do dexterity, even though we probably will, because dexterity is really, really good, and nothing has changed on that front in the 2024 rulebook.
It takes away the reliance on mage armor.
It does.
By doing that.
Yeah, it does. It gives you a different way you can go about it, and you know, if you can save on mage armor, then great. That's one less spell you have to take for. You know, like casting mage armor, man, it's not a ritual that costs a spell slot.
Yeah.
So
one less scroll to buy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, one less scroll to make or buy or whatever. You have to pay for it anyway. Level 2 is the magical cutting. We already talked about that. Lessons of the first one. Well, it gets an option here to pick another origin feat instead of an Eldritch Invocation. More feats are good. I like that. And I think this is just an invocation. They haven't like mentioned it. It's just kind of like in the thing I'm looking at here, it's just kind of smashed into the middle of the summary. But yeah. But yeah, they had this thing, and we talked about it a little bit earlier with like the origin feats that they were going to do. We talked about it, I think, 2 things ago, where they were switching it to you have a background feat. They're calling it origin feats, but like
yes, yeah,
you know, it's really good. It's, you know, feats are good, but you know, Eldritch Invocations are also really good, and it's kind of strange too, because you have a feat that can give you an invocation, and now you have an invocation that can give you a feat. So we're going both ways.
So yeah,
it's interesting, and you know, if you want a feat instead of invocation for whatever reason, then that's just another option you have, which I'm always good. And now, level 9, we get to contact patron, which it's crazy this wasn't in the beginning. Like, it's crazy that the Warlock never had an actual way to contact their patron.
Like an actual mechanic for it?
Yeah, like there was no actual mechanic. Like, you can just kind of shoot the shit and whatever and have the DM make its own shit up. But, like, now, actually, there's a mechanic for contacting the person who's giving you all your powers.
Yeah, I like it. It's a very cool role play thing.
Yeah.
That I enjoy a lot from that.
Yeah, and like level 9, you're pretty far along your way at that point. But I guess that's how powerful you need to be for your patron to actually listen to you and not just yell instructions at you through the ether. Level 11, we've got Mystic Arcanum, which is pretty much the exact same thing as it is now. It's just like an extended spell list that comes with their spells and the spell. One of the things that, and like as we're going to talk about this now, and I know a lot of people played it like this to begin with, and now it's just ratified. All of the spells you get on your spell list as like for your class features, now you just know them. They don't count against your spells known.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Because now you can like almost double the amount of spells you had.
I mean, they know quite a bit, but yeah, it's definitely nice to have that, an extra 4 or 5
the automatic
spells. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about it. You just you don't have to go through and say, oh, which one do I want? You just have all of them, and if for whatever reason at some point it comes up, you have it. It's nice.
Yeah, and they did that with subclasses a lot too, where they're saying, hey, subclasses, you get access to these. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it counting against you.
They mentioned that there is an extended spell list for the Warlock. They didn't say how many there were, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, they're holding on to that information so far.
But yeah, no, like more spells, great, love it. After that, you get your epic boon, pretty nice.
Yeah.
I don't see the capstone on this particular article I have set up, but I'm pretty sure it's just the same as we had before, where you get your...
Is it the level 9 thing you get? Or don't you get like a level 9 spell or something?
Yeah, it's
like
the level 9 spells, those are the Mystical Arcanum. Like you get...
That's what that is.
You start at level 11, you get a level 6... It's not a spell slot, but it's basically how you get access to higher level spells without having spell slots of that level, because I can't, I don't have 9th level spell slots, but I can cast a 9th level spell if I'm level 17, because that's when everyone gets their level 9 spells.
Yeah,
and you can only do it once, and it's fine. It's just
but
that's just how
powerful as fuck though. So I mean,
this is around the time where warlocks are going to start to fall off compared to other spellcasters, and that's just the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, wizards are just wizards, and sorcerers are sorcerers, and druids are druids, and it's just, you just gotta live with it. And that's
and from what I've heard, a lot of warlocks multi-class, right?
Most of them do.
Yeah, so they get the benefits of those first 13 to 15 levels, and then start moving to something else.
Yeah, and one of these things too, and I'm gonna say this right now, is when we start doing this, and if we ever do get to level 19, I'm not going to make you be level 19 on any one class to get an epic boon.
Yeah, I agree. I've been thinking about this literally since I saw it in the class thing.
Yeah, like if your character level is 19, you get an epic boon. I disagree with how they do feats distributing in 5th edition on a fucking basic level, and that's why we don't do that. We just here's a feat at 1st level. They've seen reason and gave us that, and now the next thing is get rid of this garbage where you need to be level 4 at a class to get a feat from it. Especially because feats aren't tied to your class anyway. It's not it's a class feature in the most broad sense of the term.
It realistically is customize your character more.
Yeah,
that's all a feat is.
Yeah, and I think it should be treated as such. I don't think we should be tying it to character level as much. It's fine if your character in particular wants bonus feats. I think that's fine. I think that's perfectly reasonable. You want to give bonus feats for the fighter and the rogue, excellent. Just don't tie it to anything but that.
Yeah,
and don't.
Those two can keep doing what they're doing.
Well, I mean, it is balanced around the idea that you're doing the every 4 classes. So, like, I feel like it could be rebalanced if we wanted to really get into the nitty-gritty and fuss around with it. But that's outside of the scope of this particular discussion. Let's move on to the freaking subclasses, because we are rambling on. We are rapidly approaching our time limit. So
I don't think Druid's happening today. So let's get to these subclasses.
Well, it'd be that way sometimes. 2 per episode is more than enough, if you ask me. Anyway,
absolutely.
First and foremost, nearest and dearest to my heart, the Archfey. Now, the Archfey, instead of doing...
You're talking about Nightcrawler, right?
We're talking about Nightcrawler. We're talking about... we're going to be bamfing all over the place. We are Misty stepping hard. It's so fun. I love it. I love the idea of it. And I also love the idea of the character that I made, Saphira, being this kind of, like, this teleporty kind of thing. Because, like, that's not what I had in mind when I created her. She was more a darkness plus devil's sight kind of warlock. But now she can be a lot of things, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what she can do.
Yeah, Archfey probably got maybe one of the biggest upgrades we've seen in subclasses.
Oh, it's not even close. It's so much better than it used to be. Like, and honestly, what it used to be was just kind of flavor. Like, it didn't have a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think it was just a flavor class, a subclass, you know. And it's a cool flavor, right? You know, the idea of like being Fey bound.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, let's dive into that mechanic. You know, like the idea that you can bonus action Misty Step, right, or Fey Step.
It's Misty Step.
Or what? Is it Misty Step? Okay.
Basically, you get access to the Misty Step, and you are able to use it as many times per day as you have. It's either proficiency bonus or your charisma modifier. I'm not sure at the moment. It doesn't say in the thing that I'm looking at. I'm pretty sure when it was the play test, it was your charisma modifier, but they might have changed it.
Which is, you know, like, regardless, like, if it's your charisma modifier, you're going to be putting your charisma there. Right?
I would most hope so. I would hope that you would do that. I do not dump your charisma if you're a warlock unless you're just memeing. But
I personally like the idea of proficiency better, because I like the idea of it improving a little bit faster than your charisma does, you know? And it starts off a little lower to start with. Like, you would start with 2.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. I feel like you start off with 2. You're going to have at least +2 if you're a warlock. For your charisma, you're going to have at least 14, at least.
That's what I'm saying. I think I like it being a little bit lamer in the beginning. Like, I like the idea that it's only like 2, because let's be honest, most people who are a warlock are going to be usually probably a 16 charisma, around there.
Yeah.
Like you could do 14 if you want, but a lot of people are probably going to spend their dice based, if they're doing the dice spinning method, or if they're doing rolling, right? Like, they're probably going to get to that 16ish level to get that +3 in their main stat.
Yeah.
With that being said, in my opinion, you get to +3 proficiency at level 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could technically boost yourself to +4 earlier if you did the ASI, but then you're missing out on feats and stuff like that.
Think about this too. You get +2, +1, or +1 at character creation. So
yeah, that's true.
So even if you do the point buy or the standard array and you get that 16, you can bump that up to an 18 real easily if you want to.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit trickier in Baldur's Gate 3 for some reason. They don't want you to have 18 for whatever reason, or they don't want you to be able to buy to 18. They want you to just stop at 16. But it's pretty easy to get to 18 if you really want to. If you really want your warlock to be as optimal as they can be, you can get to 18 at level 1 or level 4 at the very least.
I will say sometimes, unless you have magical items, like, you'll be capped at what, 5?
20 is the maximum naturally, yes.
Yeah, so if you do proficiency base at level 17, you would get +6. So 17, 18, 19, 20, you would all have 6 BAMPs rather than the 5 BAMPs, if you're not using magical items to improve it among
you're not
past those basic needs.
And you know what, we'll find out when they come out. It might be tied to proficiency, and I wouldn't be mad about that either. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I think either one works, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely, it works either way.
Regardless, the idea of bonus action getting rid of opportunity tax is so nice. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a good idea, because I can get in your space, or if you approach my space, okay, bonus action, move over here now.
Well, the best part about that is
Eldritch Blast.
The best part about that is now, in addition to being able to use Misty Step whenever you want to, there are extra effects that happen when you use it. So let's.
Oh, what did they add to that?
One of the things that they said was, and I recall this from the playtest as well, is you do your Misty Step and you can either get some temporary hit points, which is really nice because it just makes your Warlock a little bit tankier. They also have a thing where if you teleport next to somebody, you can give them a taunt. So they can make it so that if you want to, like, you can make it so that they have disadvantage on an attack roll against anyone but you. So basically, you I want you to hit me. And one of the biggest reasons you would want to do that, because most people are like, why the hell would I want them to attack me? Like, that's crazy. There is another feature of the Archfey Warlock where if they hit you, you can do a basically feedback loop on their brain, and they take, not only do you half the damage that they're taking, but they also take that damage.
Okay, yeah.
And that's
pretty good.
That's once per long rest. So you can't do it very often, but if there's one person that's going to do like a bunch of damage and you can like kind of save somebody if you want to, you're a warlock, why are you doing that? But if you want to do that, that's your character. I'm not going to judge, but it's really it's just one of the options. There are some other options that they didn't mention. I'm not going to assume it's going to be the same one as the playtest, because they did say that they changed it around a bit. But there were 6 options in total in the playtest, if I remember correctly. So I'm pretty sure that they kept that kind of amount, but we'll see what they are when they come out.
Yeah, Archfey looks really fun. It just looks like a cool mechanic to have with all the teleportation stuff, you know?
Yeah, and I do know that one of them is going to be invisible. Like, it's just, it is going to be that. It's a Fey Warlock. They're going to be invisible. It's going to be... They
got that, like, bewitching magic stuff that's really fun, too.
Yes, they also have the thing where it makes you immune to being charmed. And I believe that was a level 14 effect. But yeah, they basically you're immune to being charmed, and there's another effect that I don't recall at the time, but it was kind of tacked on. The big thing is that you cannot be charmed. So good.
Yeah.
Such a good thing to not be able to get charmed, because fuck getting charmed.
So let's talk about the Celestial.
Love the Celestial. Love all of them, honestly. They're all so good now.
Yeah, and Celestial was pretty good already. You know, to be honest, it just was, once again, it's that divine version of the Warlock. I like the Summon Celestial. That's a cool thing to add to it. I'm excited to see these new summon spells. The ability to do Guiding Bolt and these Cure Wounds, like, that stuff is really, really cool. You know, like, when he used the term, I can't remember if it was Todd or Jeremy, they're like, you're the hired hitman of the gods. You know?
Yeah. It's pretty funny, actually. I do like that.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. You get the Searing Radiance, which you can apply Searing Radiance to an ally as well. So Celestial got, it's already been good, but they got some nice little buffs to kind of, and plus you're working off the new Warlock stuff as well. So they're getting all those new invocations. They're getting all of that Pact of the Tome, Pact of the Blade stuff that they can stack now, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very, very good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have honestly, I don't really have a lot to say about the Celestial. Like, it's good. It has an expanded spell list. It has the same thing that all the other ones have, where they have access to all the spells just all the time, and like cleric-y spells on a Warlock. I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely, it does feel more support based, but I like that. You know, I like that it's support based.
Yeah, it feels like it should be more support based, but I mean, there's nothing stopping you from using your spells aggressively if you want to. So yeah. Yeah.
I love some of the new Fiend changes, by the way. I don't know if you saw the one, but they magical weapons no longer pass as damage, pass through your damage resistance. That's crazy.
That is really nice.
Yeah, so they get that fiendish resilience that's just so strong, because now you have like, hey, I have magic weapon, it'll get past your resistance. Actually, it won't. I'm Pact of the Fiend. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because the Pact of the Fiend, it makes it into such a great option for Hexblades, as if they needed it, as if it needed to be any better for Hexblades. But like, it really is, because like, it gives you the temporary hit points that they had from Baldur's Gate 3,
which is even better now. Did you see he made it better?
Yeah, I did see that.
because it used to be in Baldur's Gate 3 is if you kill someone, you get temporary hit points.
Yep.
But now, if they die within your area, even if you didn't kill them, you're still farming temporary hit points.
Yeah, it's an AoE farming thing, which is great. I love that.
Super tank.
Yep. Abilities now.
Don't they have...
What's that?
Don't they have the hurl through hell? Isn't it like something that Fiends have? Like the
hurl through
the famous...
Yes, hurl through hell is basically a version of Hellish Rebuke. From what I understand, it is unchanged, but it's still pretty good.
Okay.
It's still pretty good.
Yeah, just the visual imagery of hurl through hell, it sounds beautiful.
Yeah. It's just like, oh, you dare?
Yeah.
Very.
I'm
funny.
picturing like a Ghost Rider scene, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. I mean that would be a great example of a warlock with the thing. Even if he is, he's not a bad guy, Ghost Rider, but he will throw you through hell if he feels the need to.
Yeah. All right, last one for today. We got the great old one. Man, did they lean into that psychic shit.
I'm so glad they changed the great old one. It used to be that the only reason to take this was the improved hex. And now they actually have like some other cool things you can do.
Dude, the Mind Flayer thing.
The Mind Flayer thing is great. The not having to use like, first of all, changing all of your magic damage to psychic, really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yep.
Like,
and it's an option. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why wouldn't you? It's cool as hell.
Like constructs, right? You don't do it against constructs, but like,
that's true.
That's true. Like, you get the option, so it still doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
It
really is. It's really, really good. And I like this as the answer to like, oh, well, you may not have psionic abilities from your brain, but like, what if your patron just kind of hijacks your brain and just uses their psionic abilities? It's the same thing, right? That's what we're all here for. That's what the pact is for.
Yeah. The Eldritch Hex is real great, like you said. Like it is. There's some good stuff going in the Great Old One, to the point where I'm just gonna be honest. Of these 4 subclasses, Archfey is just so fun.
Mm-hmm.
All 4 of these have reasons to pick them. Just being clear, like
the Warlock is the best class, and you can fight me about it because I will not be convinced otherwise.
It's so well rounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at these subclasses. Like, if I want to go into my, like, utility base, I'm probably going to go Archfey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I want to go, like, support class, I'm going to go Celestial.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to go just damage on damage, or I would say just tank. How about that? I want to go tank, I'm going to go Fiend.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I want to go psychic damage, get past all your resistances, fucking summon a Mind Flayer, great old.
It's very debuff heavy. Like, there's a lot of things you can do with it. Like, it's not necessarily control, because it doesn't do control as well as some other thing. I think Genie is probably the best for control, just because of all the elemental stuff you get.
Freaking great one,
but
too.
Great Old One now comes up, and it is like, now I'm here to debuff people. You can do the, like, Hunger of Hadar is great, Phantasmal Force is great, Telekinesis and Summon Aberration are good. And you have Bestow Curse and the improved Hex for more debuffs. Like, it's a very, very good subclass now, and it used to be like a meme. It used to be like, oh yeah, it's the monk of the warlocks. Like, it used to be like no one ever picked it, and now I guarantee you people will pick this.
Yeah, no, it's and that's, I can say that for every single one of these subclasses.
So good. And then you have all the other ones that came up in Tasha's, like the Genie. The Genie's still probably the best one. It's still probably the best one.
I saw a lot of people were like, "Oh man, I'm mad that they didn't do Genie for the
For what?
I'm like, why? They don't need to change it. Like,
if they redid Genie, it would be worse than it is now because it is overtuned as balls.
If they changed Warlock, it therefore benefits Genie.
Yeah.
So they don't need to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Genie is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Let's see. What other kind of cool things does the Great Old One have? I know there was a...
There's the Clairvoyant thing, which is cool.
Oh, you can cast enchantment and illusion spells without verbal or somatic components.
Yes, I saw that.
You can just cast it by thinking it. So cool.
Fuck you, underwater battles.
But like, oh, you want to cast silence to silence that caster? Oh, that's such a great idea in Baldur's Gate 3. Why don't I think of that? Doesn't fucking work. You're still gonna get blasted.
Yep. I can cast silence while inside silence.
Is silence an enchantment?
Oh,
it might.
Great question.
It might be. You might.
It's either that or an abjuration.
Either, if it is an enchantment, that is funny. But it does only apply to enchantments and illusions.
That's true.
But illusion spells from this are pretty good. It's like there are plenty of illusion spells that do pretty good damage.
El Google says 2nd level illusion, baby.
There you go. It's an illusion. I would not have thought of that. Holy, what the fuck? Illusion?
Well, they did. I will say that they said that some of the stuff from the original 5e were misnomered. Like they're gonna be changing some of that stuff.
Yeah.
They said it in the wizard thing today about like changing classes of magic because they just felt like that's not actually that.
Yeah.
So silence could get renamed, but as of 5e 2014. Silence, you could cast silence with inside silence.
It's got to be either an enchantment or an abjuration. Those are the only two spells that make sense to me.
Yeah, when I think abjuration, I think buffing and defense. Like that's what that's my go-to.
But yeah, no. Honestly, I think the best part about the Great Old One, I think, is still the Eldritch Hex, the one where it gives them disadvantage on saving throws, just because, as you've seen. Disadvantage on saving throws is fucking brutal.
Yeah, because I always see people with Hex, like they usually do athletics, like they say strength checks, right? And it makes sense because athletics affects grapple and those kind of things, right? Yeah. But now, by adding saves, I'm usually going to go dexterity or I'm going to go wisdom. You know what I mean?
Like, depending on what you want to do next, yeah.
Yep.
Or charisma, I guess, if you want to banish them, but
if you want to banish them, but like having disadvantage on a banish, that sucks.
Yeah, so like, it's really, really good, and I'm sure there's like if there are ways to get it otherwise than being a Great Old One. Like I'm sure they're gonna come out with some magic item that allows you to do that or whatever. But like, it's so good. And yeah, I think this is the most fun psionic character I've ever seen. Like I've seen the Soul Knife, I've seen the Psionic Warrior, I've seen like all of these like different ones, and like this one is the most fun. You're summoning Cthulhu, you're casting shit with your brain and nothing else. It's so fun. It's so good. I'm so glad that they made it better because that was the biggest hill to climb. Because as much as the Archfey didn't have a lot of like class features,
so much of the flavor made up for that.
The flavor and the spell list was really good. Like you had Sleep, which was really, 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 really good. You had Fairy Fire. You had like all these these are good spells, especially early on.
I'm guessing they're gonna get them summoned Fae as well. I would assume so.
Because why wouldn't you?
But, yeah.
And yeah, that's going to be the end of the Warlock. We've gone over our time just talking about 2, so I think what we're going to do from now on is just 2 at a time because
2 sounds good. We could do Druid and Wizard next time.
Absolutely, we're going to go 2 full casters. Go well together. 2 full casters. Yeah. That's going to be. We're going to have plenty to talk about. So there's no shame in that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to be clear, if you guys have Druid's had so many changes.
Druid has a lot.
We need time on it.
We're probably gonna. Yeah. It's probably gonna be like a 60-40 split for Druid and Wizard because I agree. From what I saw from the Wizard, not a lot is changing.
Yeah, it's really in the subclass spacing. Yeah. is where we see it change.
Yeah, and there's only 4 subclasses that they've given us, so we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see how those new subclasses swim along with the school of other subclasses that the Wizard has in the 14 handbook. But
I agree.
But like if they're super better, then talk to your DM, homebrew some stuff, make the 14 ones better. I don't think they need it. I don't think the subclasses for Wizard really do a whole lot. I think most of the customization for Wizard just comes from what spells you take.
Yeah, and I think overall what we're seeing, just as a message from this is they've learned a lot in 10 years.
Well, thank God. I mean,
because there's some shit that needed to change, and thank goodness it is.
Well, it seems to me what happens here is that they're at least good at listening to their audience when they don't have a choice. Because this has not been an easy 12 months for Wizards of the Coast.
It has not. It has not been easy.
It has been rough. It has been just chafing. But, I mean, they come out the other side. They come out with this playtest. I think most, if not all of the things that we saw came out with a positive. I think the only ones that didn't come out with a positive score was the Druid. I think it was the only one that had a low score.
Yeah, and they had to take extra time on that playtest, remember?
Yeah.
And it makes sense. We'll dive into this next time, but like with Wild Shape, it makes sense that you're going to have two schools of thought, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they're doing that with the Cleric too when we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it. That's my baby Warlock and Mary's baby the Rogue.
And the Rogue. Yeah. Two beautiful babies, all grown up.
One significantly stronger than the other, but we're not counting that, right? We're not keeping score, right? Yeah. Magic is good. I don't know if you know that, but Magic is pretty good.
Yeah. I'm just, the weapon mastery helps out so much with these martial classes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to say that the weapon masteries are especially powerful. I mean, they can be, because, like, advantage is good, and giving disadvantage is also good, and there's some pretty good stuff. But, like, it just feels better. It feels like you're doing something besides just picking a number of dice to roll. Because that's what weapons felt like for the longest time, or especially after 3.5. It was just like, oh yeah, this is the weapon you have. It's just the amount of dice you roll. It doesn't.
Yeah, here's your 1d8.
Like, oh, and also if you're small, you have disadvantage if you wear this, even though your strength is 28.
Yeah. Now it's like, hey, here's your 1d8. Also, you have advantage now.
Yeah. It's just better.
Oh, you got a crit. Nice.
Yeah. It's just better. Yeah.
I think it makes battle easier to picture, if I'm being honest. Like, the idea of toppling, the idea of vexing, like, these words that they have chosen purposely are going to help tell the narrative better with the weapon fighting, too.
I mean, I'm always for more flavor in their battles. I'm always for, like, if somebody wants to say every single time it's their turn, I do a flourish, I do a thing, I tell them to, eat a rotten egg. Like, I love that shit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
right.
But yeah, it's good, and everything feels a lot better, and there's not a whole lot of things that they've changed that I wouldn't consider an improvement so far.
Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you so much for joining us here at Tavern Ramblings from Lizards and Locations for episode 8. We have gotten through the Rogue and the Warlock as they have been announced to us, not yet in our hands as a book. We're excited to kind of see where things go, and tune in next time as we talk about, what do we say, Druid and Wizard?
Looking that way.
Druid and Wizard, so unless something changes. But hey, who knows? Maybe we'll just ramble.
Maybe we'll get through one next time, and we'll just talk about something crazy.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. If we start off with Druid, it might be that.
It might be just a Druid episode. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, regardless, once again, thank you so much. And this is John, also here with.
This is Andrew. Don't forget to cast Eldritch Blast.
Yeah. We'll see you guys soon. All right.